Deadman Mode is RuneScape's most intense PvP game mode and the key element of Jagex's marketing strategy. Since its introduction in 2015, Deadman Mode has undergone nearly 20 different iterations, each aimed at enhancing the player's experience with a better balance and enjoyment for all. These updates have included features like sigils and new weapons to boost players' damage output, as well as experience accelerations to facilitate quick leveling and the creation of optimized account builds. Over the past decade, Deadman Mode has delivered countless memorable moments, both triumphant and heartbreaking. Today, I'm going to delve into it all. From the original Deadman Mode concept in 2015 to the tournaments, seasonals, and everything in between, this is the many disasters of Deadman Mode.
10-13. This could kill Matt when it registered. Widely known for the best.
Deadman Mode is a variant of old school RuneScape that was released on October 29, 2015. Originally, Deadman Mode wasn't drastically different from the main game, except the players could attack each other almost anywhere. There was no grand exchange, experience rates were about 5 times faster, and the deaths came with harsh penalties. You would lose half of your gained experience while skulled, all of your items, and the vast majority of your bank. From the start, this was a recipe for chaos. Players would camp outside of safe zones, trying to ambush players selling their items or bank their loot. Some would even sacrifice their entire account in a desperate rush to kill another player before the guards could intervene. Despite the challenges, this game mode was incredibly thrilling and brought a unique atmosphere to a game that had been around for 20 years. However, the core mechanics of Deadman Mode clash with its long-term viability. In order to progress, players had to essentially ruin somebody else's account, creating a brutal environment where those at the bottom of the food chain had very little chance of recovery. This imbalance over time led to a decline in the player base within just a few months. Once Jagex recognized this issue in March of 2016, they finally announced the very first Deadman Mode seasonal game mode. This new version was a shorter, reset version of Deadman Mode where all accounts would start fresh and the top 2,000 players on the high scores at the end of the season would compete for a $10,000 prize. The first Deadman Mode tournament in Seasonal took place in March of 2016 and nobody really knew what to expect, as this was the game's very first ever tournament, introducing players to an entirely new concept, things like the Deadman Mode fog that would push players into a condensed area similar to the early mechanics seen in games like H1Z1 or Fortnite. Unfortunately, this would turn into a disaster early on. Nearly every player would be eliminated almost instantaneously, wiping out a week's worth of progress and hundreds of hours of effort due to a poorly implemented mechanic designed by Jagex to force these players towards the final battle area. After the swift and brutal elimination of 2,000 RuneScape Deadman Mode players and a very furious Switch chat, the first winner of the Deadman Mode tournament, You Never Learn, was eventually announced the winner of the $10,000 prize. This was a major upset for another player known as RoT, who was actually the last person to fall on the official Jagex livestream.
Who was the winner?
The winner is...
There's 9 people left. Robert is out. You Never Learn is still in the tournament.
Oh, no.
You Never Learn is still alive.
This left everybody in an uproar and very confused. Even Jagex needed a couple days to sort through all the footage and figure out what actually happened. As it turned out, You Never Learn was eventually crowned the winner over RoT, but he wasn't even in the battle itself. Instead, he stood outside of the boundaries, surviving in the fog by using RuneScape's tick-eating mechanic with his remaining food in order to stay alive as long as possible. Colonello made an excellent video detailing this entire experience and breaking it down into intricate details. I'll put a link for that video down below in the description if you would like to have a more in-depth look at this event and everything that followed. A few months later, Jagex hosted another Deadman Mode tournament in the summer featuring the same prize pool and tournament rules. This time, however, they did make some changes, such as moving the finale location from Falador to Barbarian Village, giving players a better idea of what to expect. But this tournament was still far from perfect. Numerous bugs and glitches surfaced frequently, including players turning invisible, using skull tricks, exploiting magic carpet glitches to nullify damage, and X-logging instead of escaping. Eventually, the second Deadman Mode finale was concluded, although with less excitement. A player named OnCodine did walk away with the $10,000 prize. At this point, Deadman Mode had become a staple to RuneScape. The player base just couldn't get enough, and every few months, Jagex would launch a new season followed by a tournament, and the third Deadman Mode finale took place in September of 2016. However, this moment would spark a lot of controversy, as this finale would turn out to be one of the most outrageous moments in a gaming tournament history. Jagex moved the finale location again, this time from Barbarian Village to Demonic Ruins, or better known to most PKers as GDZ, where the nearest bank is miles away, making it very hard to exploit any in-game mechanic like in the previous seasons. This new location was the perfect battleground for clans, and a clan known as Reign of Terror ended up actually taking the win at this new spot. Although Jagex did buff the fog's power once again, players did find ways to exploit the poisonous mechanic to avoid taking damage and increase their chances of survival. Now, all of this was actually broadcasted on Jagex's official livestream, causing another uproar within the RuneScape community. But the real controversy came from a player known as Woox, who managed to use one of RuneScape's NPCs known as Phileas,
It's files.
located in Rimington, to unnote food and manipulate tick eating to outlast the fog's damage. With an almost infinite supply of food and nobody to interfere with him, he effectively became the last man standing in the Deadman Mode finale. This strategy was both clever and within the Deadman Mode rules. However, Jagex didn't see this as being in the spirit of the tournament, because in truth it wasn't. It wasn't even a part of the final fight. The RuneScape community erupted with Reddit threads and Twitter memes, casting doubt on the future of Deadman Mode as a serious competitive esport for RuneScape. And amid all the backlash, one of Jagex's senior staff known as Mod Ash personally reached out and contributed $10,000 out of his own pocket to Woox so that Reign of Terror could also claim their prize as well, hoping that this would resolve any issues and backlash for the company. If you made it this far, you might think that this is the worst disaster that Deadman Mode could face, but what happened next is beyond anyone's imagination.
They're gonna come in now. Look, be ready. They're coming in now. They have to run in.
You already,
You brought, wait.
Oh my god, no!
The fourth and final Deadman Mode tournament of 2016 that was held in December marked a turning point in the future of DMM. Reign of Terror, also known as RoT, the reigning champions from the previous tournament, had gained an inside advantage through a compromised Jagex employee known as Mod Jed. While Jed was officially employed at Jagex, in his off hours he was an active member of RoT. Although he initially contributed positively to the game, playing a role in the creation of Revenant Caves and enhancing PvP, RoT's corruption and influence soon took hold. With Mod Jed on their side, Reign of Terror, who was already a dominant multi-PKing clan, gained a powerful, unprecedented advantage. Their influence stretched far beyond what any other RuneScape player could even achieve. After the disaster of the previous tournament involving Woox, Jagex increased the potency of the fog, which wiped out half the competitors before they could even reach the final area. However, something even more sinister awaited for those who did survive. Reign of Terror had collected and positioned 100 members inside the Palace of Al-Kharid, blocking its only entrance, which was a narrow 1x1 doorway. The big question on everyone's mind was, how did RoT know this was going to be the final area? And if they did know, how were they so perfectly prepared before the tournament even began? Also, why was the final battleground in a location with such a restrictive entrance? All signs pointed to Mod Jed. It's believed that Reign of Terror manipulated Jed into using his position as a Jagex staff member to suggest the palace as a final location. This allowed RoT to gain significant inside tactical advantages before the tournament area was even announced. In a matter of minutes, RoT decimated the competition, almost as if they had played a dark hole card in Yu-Gi-Oh! They wiped out the entire player base. As the tournament came to a close, RoT emerged victorious once again, sparking outrage across the RuneScape community. Players accused RoT of receiving special treatment from Mod Jed, but with plausible deniability and no concrete evidence at the time, Jed walked away unscathed, and RoT did as well, with another $10,000 claimed in prize money. The fifth Deadman Mode tournament took place in March of 2017, and Jagex carefully considered how to address the issues and problems from the previous tournaments. This time, the finale would take place in Demonic Ruins as the battleground, but it came with a twist. Instead of crowning the last man standing on the battleground as the Deadman Mode champion, it would instead be determined by KDA. The player with the highest amount of kills at the end of the tournament would be crowned victorious, and in this case, it was Deadbotting, the leader of Lit.
We got a good ass fucking unit here, and we got a good ass shot to win. If you be a bitch and you don't fucking push when you're told to push, you will get fucking cleared. Offense is your greatest defense. Rush now, rush now, rush now, rush now, rush now. Hit that south side, hit that south side, hit that south side with barrage and chins, barrage and chins. Frog dog, I barrage, frog dog, hit that huge clump. RoT's in a massive clump to these. RoT's in a massive clump to these. Focus, frog dog, frog dog, frog dog. Pray mage, barrages. Spread better.
He emerged victorious with a total of 22 kills, earning $10,000 prize for his team, and it was a very narrow victory. Second place only got 1 kill less, just behind him with 21 kills. In June of 2017, Deadman Mode Tournament number 6 would come to light, and it would come off of a previous success. Jagex aimed to replicate the 5th tournament with no issues, no bad publicity, and no upset players. This time, the finale area would be moved to Barbarian Village, and Jagex was deep in their own pockets with this one because they decided to up the ante for the finale winner to $20,000 as a cash prize instead of the usual $10,000. Coming off of a defeat to Lit in the previous tournament, Reign of Terror devised a plan to secure another DMM victory in the history books, and this one was a stealth operation. They planted themselves undercover within Lit itself, and when the time was right, they decided to turn on them and take them all out. They claimed another win, and Reign of Terror had representation on stage at the main event that confirmed this fact and that this was their battle strategy. They walked away with another $20,000 prize.
They knew 70 versus 200 they were not going to win, and they decided to change their name to Lit. So Lit had no idea what to do because we had the same team capes at them. As to them, we were the same exact people, and we used that to kill everyone else. So Lit helped us kill everyone else, and then we killed Lit. And that's pretty much what happened.
Now here's where things get truly interesting. In September 2017, the 7th Deadman Mode tournament would take place, marking a turning point that would change the game mode forever. After receiving significant criticism from the community about the overwhelming advantage that being in a clan would lead to, and how solo players would have a slim chance of even competing, Jagex introduced 1v1 matches. The final 200 players in this tournament would be then teleported and split into 4 small islands faced with multi-combat battles. The surviving players from each island would then advance into a 1v1 arena for the semifinals and then later the grand final. While this does sound very promising on paper, in practice it turned into another Jagex disaster. Due to poor planning and game design, players had access to no bank chests and supplies were very scarce, making every bite of food crucial for survival if you were going to make it to the 1v1s. Even prayer flicking, a technique never used before in a DMM finale, became necessary at times. The real Deadman Mode tragedy would begin as soon as players were teleported onto these islands. The fights would drag on endlessly due to small player numbers, friend groups, and clan alliances, and one of the 4 islands was actually completely nuked and wiped out because the players refused to fight. Meanwhile, on the other islands, chaos reigned while battles emerged. In the end, both opponents of the original winner, which was a player from RoT, in the semifinals ended up disconnecting, and this led a lot of players to speculate that this was a DDoS attack rather than a mere coincidence. Eventually, the winner was disqualified for botting, and the runner-up, a guy named True Fox, received $10,000 as a prize, and another $10,000 was then donated to charity. The backlash for this was enormous, and the players were not having it. The allegations that Mod Jed was helping RoT were seriously starting to gain traction at this point, and it was going to be looked at under a microscope for the rest of Deadman Mode history. Following the disastrous outcome of the previous tournament, which sent the player base of RuneScape into a frenzy, Jagex opted to introduce a familiar tournament structure that has become popular in many recent years. Players would randomly be assigned one of the 2 final multi-combat zone locations, a move that was designated to mitigate the dynamics of Clanman mode. Ultimately, the remaining 128 participants in multi-combat would then be moved to a one-on-one arena with 64 players representing each zone. With this format, each contestant would engage in head-to-head battles that would lead up to the finals in a 1v1 that was consistent with traditional tournament layout styles. Players would receive a resupply between rounds, and they would even be able to swap out gear by taking the spoils from defeated opponents. The champion of this new structure would be awarded $20,000 with substantial prizes that would be announced for the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th places, with 2nd place receiving $10,000 and both 3rd and 4th places also earning $1,000 each. It's safe to say that the newly established format has garnered satisfaction among the majority and has been a long-time fan favorite for many years to come. Deadman Mode would now emphasize skill and authentic PvP tribal matches rather than a large-scale multi-combat survival contest, and this shift would be more entertaining for spectators and also promote a more skill-based oriented approach for its participants. However, with this new format, challenges would arise, including lengthy tournament durations that could last up to several hours, shaky camera work as hosts would attempt to capture the action accurately, and an increased vulnerability for players due to disconnects and DDoS attacks during one-on-one matches. In the final round, Syke went up against Manked Up Mage and emerged victorious. Unfortunately, his triumph was short-lived as he was disqualified for auto-clicking his magic level despite winning a legitimate one-on-one match. He was then removed from the competition, leading to Manked being crowned the Deadman Mode champion and the first ever on-stage contestant to win, securing $20,000 and winning the 1v1 battle. For the 9th Deadman Mode tournament that took place in March of 2018, Jagex had the whole game fooled into believing that they had created a promising format and finally put it into motion. Everything should have gone smoothly from this point forward, right? Well, think again, because at the start of the permadeath stage, right before the 1v1s even had a chance to start, around 160 players, which was about a quarter of the surviving players, were simultaneously kicked out of the game due to an unrelated bug. Players were devastated as their entire 200-hour grind was flushed away with absolutely no explanation as to why. Once they disconnected, players couldn't re-enter the game. This affected notable players like Skillspecs, who was actually performing on stage, and a couple of other large creators like Foe and Torvesta. The Twitch chat erupted with demands of a restart for the tournament, but for various reasons that wasn't a possibility. As compensation, the kicked out players were automatically qualified for the next tournament and received several months of free membership. Many of the players who were affected by this were hardcore Deadman Mode patriots and were taken to YouTube and other social media platforms to display their utter disgust with how careless Jagex was with handling their efforts, and some even vowed to not play Deadman Mode in the foreseeable future due to the nature of how often these issues arise. Following this debacle, Jagex devised a congruency plan for future tournaments and in case a similar incident occurred. This plan granted Jagex greater control over the event, including the ability to pause and resume the game and a limited capacity to reconnect disconnected players who went offline, provided that they were still alive during the time of disconnection. Despite these efforts, Deadman Mode's reputation had taken a significant hit, and it became a scapegoat for any mishaps, whether they were deserved or not. And just when you thought that things couldn't possibly get worse, during the 1v1s, a player named Rainia appeared to have a string of luck against opponents that mysteriously disconnected in every match that he happened to be losing. After 4 consecutive fights with all disconnecting opponents, Rainia eventually advanced to the finals, where they did end up losing but walked away with the second place prize of $10,000. Although a member of the Clan Fools ultimately claimed that top spot and won the $20,000 cash prize, the RuneScape community was in an uproar. Jagex failed to address the disconnection issues during the live event, and this led to more widespread frustration. It wasn't even until much later that Jagex finally addressed and issued a statement saying basically the following: "Protecting your IP address is entirely your own responsibility. Jagex is not responsible for your IP address becoming compromised and your connection being targeted by others." Now, normally I would actually be on Jagex's side here and say that it's not their responsibility to make sure that every single person is responsible with their own connection, and that Jagex doesn't really have anything to do with it. However, this response angered the Deadman Mode community, as many people felt that Jagex wasn't taking their tournament seriously or protecting the legitimate players in the tournament. A lot of these players spend hundreds of hours every single tournament in order to make sure that their accounts are in pristine condition, and to make matters worse, Rainia was actually a member of Reign of Terror, the clan that was previously accused of having ties with a compromised Jagex employee. This led players to suspect that Mod Jed had been leaking their opponents' IP addresses to Reign of Terror to give them an unfair advantage and the ability to DDoS them mid-tournament, further deepening the outrage and a complete misuse of Jagex employee powers. The final statement from Jagex was that Rainia did get awarded his $10,000, and all of this was just quietly swept under the rug. Now, Deadman Mode Tournament 10 was ran relatively smoothly with only a few disconnection issues from notable players like Mika. There isn't really much to highlight from this tournament except for the fact that the Verac meta was introduced. This strategy was showed that in the 1v1 scenarios, Tribrid isn't always the answer. The Verac set effect, Defiler, provides a 25% chance to ignore defense and armor bonuses, proving to be a deadly alternative for the players opting for a tank-focused build over traditional Tribrid setups. Ultimately, DMM Freakshow, a member of Lit, secured first place, with Ditterbitter finishing as the runner-up. Around this time, Mod Jed, the Jagex employee and member of the clan Reign of Terror, was removed from both the clan and the company as allegations of abusing his powers continued to pile up. In September of 2018, Jed's Twitter account was suspended shortly before Jagex announced that an employee working on old school RuneScape had been dismissed. It was later confirmed to be Mod Jed by ex-Mod Matt K in an interview with ex-Mod Shawnee. In a 2021 interview, Matt K provided further details about Jed's misconduct. Jed had used another employee's account credentials to improperly grant account appeals, resulting in players losing significant amounts of wealth and items. He also threatened the careers of the employees who presumed to have made those incorrect appeals, and in the most malicious part of his activities, he did drop untradeable items from the hacked accounts, an action that Mod Matt K deemed particularly spiteful as it offered absolutely no monetary gain at all for Jed. While working on this video, I received a screenshot of a conversation between Mod Matt K and Deadbotting. This conversation was discussing whether Jed had been misusing his moderator privileges to spy on Lit, the clan that Deadbotting was running at the time. Since RoT was known for espionage tactics, Deadbotting tried to avoid them by gathering hundreds of obscure team capes in the deep wilderness and only distributing them to his clan minutes before the tournament finale. This would ensure that nobody could come up and figure out this plan ahead of time or what cape that they were using. However, while his clan was preparing for battle, Deadbotting claimed to see Mod Jed's character in-game within the walls of their gathering location, spying on them from afar and spawning the same team capes for RoT to use in a second espionage attempt. Mod Matt K didn't have a way to confirm this one way or another, but he did confirm that the scenario was entirely possible given Jed's known actions. After Jed's dismissal, the following tournaments ran with minimal issues. This seemed to confirm the players' suspicions about his involvement in prior disruptions. Many believe that this is the explanation as to why the disconnections and malicious activities had ceased until Tournament 13 in 2019. Tournament 13, that took place in March 2019, marked the beginning of another major disaster. Jagex unexpectedly started issuing selective bans for muling, and several content creators, including Torvesta, were amongst the few disqualified. Two clans, Fools and Blazers, teamed up to control the multi-combat tunnel during the Shallow Village quest. This tunnel, with its narrow 1x1 tile entrance and delay upon entry, became an impenetrable fortress held down by both clans for the entire week. This blockade would deny the entire player base access to the King's Ransom quest, which rewards players with the highly coveted Piety player, a crucial asset in melee combat. With only members of Fools and Blazers able to unlock Piety, their dominance in this tournament would be inevitable, as all other competitors would be at a severe disadvantage. For days, other clans would attempt to retake this tunnel, but Blazers and Fools held their ground for over 100 hours straight, displaying incredible persistence and determination. A few tournaments ago, Jagex decided to introduce beta playthroughs to avoid any major tournament issues, but this time in particular they decided to opt out, wrongly assuming that everything would run smoothly, a decision that would soon come to haunt them. As the final hour of the Deadman Mode tournament approached, Fools and Blazers members armed with their Piety builds were clearly the favorite to win, and the rest of the player base would brace for a tough battle. When the tournament would reach the final remaining 128 players, they would all be simultaneously teleported to the 1v1 arenas. Only this time they would be wiped out by a misplaced fog mechanic, a clear oversight that could have been avoided had Jagex ran one of these proper beta tests. Although Jagex paused the tournament to address the issue, the damage was already done. In Deadman Mode, when players die, they're sent to the Falador jail and logged out. 93 players were killed and 54 were logged out during the process, including the on-stage players like Solo Mission and Skill Specs. The remaining 39 players were stuck in the Falador jail when the game was paused. Since dying and logging out during the permadeath stage wipes a player's stats and bank entirely, the 54 logged out players could not be revived. The 39 players that were in the jail could rejoin, but lost a significant amount of gear and stats. They were offered a build of 94 stats in all skills by Jagex, accompanied with some basic to mid-tier gear, a terribly poor replacement for the high-tier equipment and effort that they had put into all tournament long. When the tournament finally resumed for the 1v1 arenas, more problems would arise. Some fights would involve 3 players, creating unfair 2v1 scenarios, revived players were missing items, starter kits were being used despite being banned, bank chests wouldn't disappear for some players had no opponents at all and were in empty arenas, the Blood Barrage spell would heal excessively, restoring full health instead of a small percentage. These arenas were actually so poorly coded that some players were actually able to teleport out and free roam the RuneScape map. All of this was happening live during a tournament with over $30,000 on the line, an absolute embarrassment for Jagex. From the fog disaster to the 1v1 matches, 2.5 hours had passed, and by then, most players and viewers just wanted this tournament to end. In the semifinals, Manked was falsely declared the winner mid-fight due to his opponent being automatically logged out after hitting the 6-hour mark, a result of the tournament dragging on for too long. After nearly 6 hours of chaos, Eo Murray, the leader of Fools, defeated Manked in the finals, but Deadman Mode Tournament 13 will always be remembered as a complete and utter nightmare. After the debacle that was Tournament 13, Jagex acknowledged the mishandling of the event and the poor decisions that drained the players' time and enthusiasm. In response to this, they decided to host a rerun with a full prize pool available for all affected participants. To address the previous issues and prevent a repeat of last time, Jagex implemented a 3-hour grace period on a single DMM tournament server, which PvP was completely disabled. This allowed players to finalize their builds and complete necessary quests in preparation for the grand finals. However, some viewed this as unfair, especially since members of Fools and Blazers who had controlled the Shiloh Village tunnel for an entire week, only to see hundreds of players granted safe passage during this grace period. Despite the controversy, the tournament actually proceeded quite smoothly. Bellis, a member of Blazers, claimed a $20,000 prize and first place. It was considered one of the most well-executed tournaments as Jagex took the correct measures to improve the event's flow. In June of 2019, Jagex hosted one final Deadman Mode tournament and then ultimately decided to close its doors altogether. Over the years, the game had just generated too much negative publicity and it overshined the positive, with incidents like DDoS attacks, employee sabotage, bugs, and player mistreatment being all too common. Jagex had nothing else that they could provide. Although the players were disappointed, there was an understanding of Jagex's decision. The company promised to revive Deadman Mode provided they could properly manage the servers and respect players' times in the future. After a 1-year hiatus, the world entered an international lockdown in 2020 due to the pandemic, and RuneScape's player count surged. With a year of maintenance behind them and a growing player base, Jagex decided to launch another Deadman Mode tournament to capitalize on the rising numbers. This tournament would be like no other. This one would last 1 full month, featured no restrictions, and was exactly what the players had been waiting for. This tournament differed from previous tournaments as Jagex decided to donate £25,000 to charity instead of awarding it to the winner. First place would instead receive $1,000 USD, some gaming gear, and a year of old school RuneScape membership, with second and third place also receiving gaming gear, membership, and a smaller cash prize. Fourth place would even get something as well with just $250, a year of membership and gaming gear, and even everyone ranked between 5th and 16th place would get a year of free membership as well. Jagex likely structured the prizes this way to discourage people from cheating, as the rewards were more modest and the bulk of the prize pool was going to be going to charity. They also made several changes to monster drop tables, death mechanics, content restrictions, and improved the overall experience for everyone involved. The tournament ran smoothly and was likely the most balanced, enjoyable, and competitive Deadman Mode event yet. The real drama, however, came from the intense rivalries between clans. Frontline and TaTa, two of the most notable Deadman Mode clans in RuneScape history, dominated the Reddit and YouTube algorithm with their ongoing battles and in-game clashes. Both clans had strong egos and some of the most skilled PKers the game has ever seen. Their constant mage bank battles, bank fights, and high-risk kills kept the game mode engaging for a full 30 days of exciting content. Clan rivalries always added to the competitiveness and excitement of Deadman Mode, and the event truly wouldn't be the same without them. In the end, TaTa Sleepy would win the 1v1 finals, marking one of the few tournaments without any major issues, and possibly one of the only reasons that Deadman Mode made a full comeback in recent years. After the success of the previous Deadman Mode tournament, Jagex introduced a new iteration called Deadman Mode Reborn. This version brought significant changes along with a ton of complications. One of the major updates was the introduction of combat brackets, opening DMM to a broader range of players, including mains, mid-levels, peers, and even unconventional account builds. Players can now create highly unique accounts thanks to the introduction of sigils born from the very famous Trailblazer League format. Players would be able to attach up to 3 sigils to their account, each boosting their combat abilities in different ways. Upon logging into a Deadman Mode Reborn world for the first time, players would be given the choice of a tier 2 sigil. Each of these would significantly enhance melee, magic, or ranged combat, and additionally, these sigil slots could be unlocked as your accounts progressed. However, these sigils would quickly become problematic. Many of them were incorrectly coded, resulting in extremely overpowered effects. For weeks, players would exploit these bugs, such as using defensive sigils that amplified their stats by 20 times instead of plus 20, and camping popular teleport spots with one-hit kill strategies. The starter kits that were given out upon account creation would also provide a free sigil. Players quickly found a way to abuse this, which players would then sell on the Grand Exchange, swap for old school RuneScape gold, and then even sell for real life money. Essentially, Jagex created a gold printing loophole for over a week. After weeks of chaos, Jagex finally addressed some of these issues, leading into the tournament's finale on September 17th. This stage would feature 1v1 combat with a $32,000 prize pool and without any multi-qualifiers for the first time ever. The top 2,048 ranked players based on total levels would enter the competition, battling across 4 regional worlds that would eventually merge into one server as players were eliminated. Despite the hype, the event was riddled with issues. Jagex servers were completely unstable throughout the entire tournament, compromising the integrity of the fights. Jagex later blamed DDoS attacks, but the technical problems persisted. Notably, AH64 Apache, a veteran of Deadman Mode, faced one of the most bizarre situations I've ever seen. His opponent was randomly teleported out mid-fight and declared the winner, though neither player had died or even got close to it. For this, no explanation was ever given. As the tournament continued, further chaos ensued as there were lobbies between each rounds where a popular streamer known as Coxie was randomly venomed and died in a non-combat zone, resulting in his account being completely wiped and status deleted. Many players would experience similar issues, and Jagex would try and help them out by telling them to relog in order to fix the issues that were on their accounts. However, when they did, their progress would be completely wiped, account disabled from entering the tournament again without any proper reinstatement. The tournament was such a disaster that every content creator that participated was completely unsatisfied with the results.
Look at this, it's not even going off.
Yeah, fuck this game.
It's not a proper fight, man. It's just so laggy.
Look, they know it's lagging! Look!
The commentator says when it registers. Are you fucking kidding me?
Oh, this could kill Manx when it registers.
When it registers, mate! What the f? Look how laggy it is! The hit didn't even spawn! I waited too long. I spent 3 weeks. I spent 3 weeks waiting for this. I did 14 hours, 16 hours every single day. I skipped the gym for this shit. I lost 10 pounds for this shit. Damn it! Fix the game! Fix it!
Autoblock's justified outrage actually ended up becoming a headline across the entire internet, with Jagex once again being mocked in the esports community. Despite the turmoil, the tournament did somehow come to an end, with Frontline leader 1YNA winning the whole thing, and Frontline claiming over $20,000 in prize money. Jagex soon realized that their event had turned into a catastrophe, with the fiasco setting Deadman Mode back significantly in its chances to ever become a sustainable esport. The player base of RuneScape was outraged, feeling as if the company made no real effort to address the disaster that unfolded, causing thousands to once again waste valuable time, effort, and energy. So after 2 months, on November 5th, 2021, Jagex announced that there would be another rerun for this mishap, with the full 32,000 prize pool available, once more a costly attempt to fix their mistakes. This time, Jagex promised a beta phase to ensure that there would be no bugs or mishaps, limited to the 2,048 participants from the previous tournament, and even offered membership as a compensation. Fortunately, Jagex confirmed that they had saved the player files from the previous tournament, so everyone's account would be restored to the previous state. The stage was set, and with proper measures finally put in place, there was hope that the players would finally get what they worked hard for, and that Deadman Mode might still have a future. After nearly 1 year of hard preparation, the tournament rerun was set for June of 2022. Jagex was confident, claiming a full year of effort had gone into resolving all of the previous issues. While the tournament ran smoothly in terms of in-game mechanics, the infamous lag did make a return, exposing once again that Jagex systems and servers were unable to handle the immense pressure. Round after round, players were eliminated by factors that were beyond their control, turning the event into yet another tragedy. The tournament spanned for several hours, plagued by pauses, lag spikes, disconnections, and a ton of different interruptions. Once again, the RuneScape community was furious, feeling cheated out of a proper finale for now the second time. Many prominent players who were expected to perform well and make it far in the tournament were eliminated early due to these technical issues, leaving them and many others convinced that they could have gone all the way if it wasn't for Jagex's failure to handle an event of this scale. Ultimately, the tournament concluded with Frontline claiming yet another victory, but this marked the end of an era for Deadman Mode 1v1s. While this is what the players wanted and hoped to see in every event, it became clearer now than ever that Jagex was just not equipped to manage such a large-scale tournament, and so Deadman Mode would once again close its doors. 1 year passed, and Jagex was determined to revive Deadman Mode by any means necessary. In August 2023, we saw yet another revamp of the Trailblazer-style Deadman Mode tournaments, and this time it was branded as Deadman Apocalypse. This version was to take on the previous season, featuring numerous changes that were generally well received by the player base. In this iteration, breaches occurred at regular intervals, where monsters would invade the outer world, causing chaos. Players who dealt enough damage to contain these breaches earned exclusive, powerful loot such as PvP weapons, trinkets for spells like Vengeance, and even corrupted dragon weapons, god swords, and PVM items. Jagex also reintroduced sigils to the game, tweaking their benefits to suit the tournament's more compact structure. The Apocalypse servers were once again divided into combat level brackets, allowing for a variety of account builds, quest unlocks, experience multipliers, and the ability to create new and unique account structures. It was clear that Jagex was experimenting with Deadman Mode mechanics, slowly moving away from the traditional playstyle of previous tournaments. This approach was a smart way to attract new players, and they even adjusted the prize pool to award over 25 players with cash prizes, including categories like Last Man Standing, random selections, and high scores rankings. While the tournament itself ran smoothly, Jagex's biggest challenge this time came from a different source. In 2023, with RuneLite being open source, cheat clients were running rampant. Players could easily create fresh accounts and start PKing within hours, leading to little fear of bans or disqualifications. In every bracket, players would start to abuse AHK scripts, PK plugins, and fully automated clients capable of performing highly skilled tasks completely on their own. This severely undermined the integrity of the tournament, forcing players to retreat to bank fights to avoid these Megatron PKers. Jagex had no effective response and handled the situation in a completely sloppy manner. Allowing these rampant cheat clienters, especially with overpowering sigils, was a surefire way to alienate a significant portion of the player base and effectively force them to quit. For weeks, content creators urged Jagex in various group chats, providing names and video evidence of the cheating, yet Jagex took over 2 weeks to address any of it. By then, it was too late, and the tournament was just days away from the finale, damaging what could have been their most successful event yet. When content creators and live streamers face cheaters exploiting the game for days on end without any action taken or consequences, it severely tarnishes the game's reputation because of what the viewers will experience on the big screen. Finally, the 1-month tournament wrap up with a multi-combat war zone across 5 worlds. Several winners were awarded $1,000 each, and for once, there were no lag issues or technical mishaps. However, if Jagex had promptly addressed the cheat clients and PK plugins, and actually shown a little bit of care for the integrity of the game mode, this tournament would have been one of their most successful to date, especially since it ran without lag, disconnections, and had multiple winners, which everyone seemed to enjoy. Another year passed, and Jagex thought to build on the success of the previous Deadman Mode tournament, which had been a hit during the finale. This time, the RuneScape community was introduced to Deadman Mode Armageddon. This tournament followed much of the same structure as before, featuring sigils, breaches, and combat level brackets with only minor adjustments changed. The format remained similar as well, reducing the player base and hosting 5 separate finales across 5 worlds. In all honesty, this is probably the best approach for Jagex to maintain server integrity while still having the chance to diversify the experience for players. However, once again, Jagex failed to address the rampant PK client issue, a problem that has now spread into the main game as well and has become far too common during Deadman Mode. Players brazenly would upload videos boasting about cheating and sabotaging the experience for others. Many players have now stopped reporting these cheat climbers altogether, believing that Jagex would do nothing based on the past results. Through this, the cheating epidemic continued to erode the month-long tournament, damaging the game mode more and more each day. If Jagex hopes to launch another Deadman mode, they really must take measures to address these issues seriously. PvP is already on life support, and if this kind of behavior is continued to be tolerated, it could spell the end of competitive gameplay by 2025 if Jagex doesn't act now. After 30 days of intense competition, the 5 finale worlds launched, marking the beginning of the end. This is where the real drama unfolded, as Reign of Terror would once again make headlines. They recruited hundreds of players and infiltrated Odablock CC during the finale. Using espionage tactics, they embedded themselves within his community for their own gain, re-establishing themselves as the villains of RuneScape.
Wow, that sucks. That fucking sucks. So the last remaining people, that 10 people that we saw, was all of our boys. That's why they weren't attacking each other. But they didn't want to attack Alex RSPS because he was showed as a purple dot. Bro, I don't care what people say, bro. I'll take that as a W. Wallah. Like, that infiltration dog shit is just like shameless. I'm not gonna lie, bro.
Numerous players reported seeing PvP bot farms during the finale. This is known as multi-boxing. They're basically just a bunch of accounts that snipe high-profile players, ruining the experience of the finale and taking high-profile targets out of the game. In the end, Oda and his community were furious about how the tournament was handled, and especially that these tactics were tolerated at all. Oda, who had brought significant exposure to Deadman Mode and RuneScape, felt that his community had been robbed of an enjoyable experience. He publicly called out RoT, and this sparked widespread attention both within and beyond RuneScape.
I will say this, you RoT members are the poison of the multi-community. I've met with over like 10 leaders so far in 10 different clans, and I would say they were all pleasant to talk to, and they actually coordinated in a good way. You guys are a poison. You guys are dog shit. You guys can't fight in a 1v1 setting. That's why you guys have to resort to DDoSing the 1v1s to do multi. You guys threaten and dox random people because you guys are scumbags. You guys have bots to cheat.
After an intense investigation, Jagex took unprecedented action. They issued the first ever clan-wide disqualification, banning all Reign of Terror members and accounts from the Deadman Mode tournament. This was a completely unexpected move from Jagex, especially since it was surpassing the controversy surrounding the Mod Jed incident just a few years prior. After all was said and done, Jagex came out with the following statement. Following the Deadman Mode Armageddon finale, you were rightly pointed out that areas of our investigation go beyond just Deadman Mode. We are committed to keeping Old School a safe and welcoming environment with a thriving community. Toxicity has no place in our game, and we are committed to acting against those who go out of their way to challenge this. After the Jagex sweep, they announced that over 500 accounts have been affected due to these actions, with username changes and perm bans being handed out. In the end, the finale was such a disaster that so many disqualifications were handed out that some brackets still to this day remain without a winner. And that covers all of the Deadman Mode tournaments up until this point. If Jagex decides to host more tournaments in the future, I have no doubt that we'll see some of the same chaos arise. After all, it's been happening for nearly a decade now. And I know some of you might think that I'm the biggest Deadman Mode hater of all time, but in all honesty, I'm just disappointed. Deadman Mode has given me some of the most fun I've ever had in RuneScape over the last 20 years. I think the game mode's potential is limitless, and I do hold it dear to my heart. I genuinely want to see it succeed. I love everything about Deadman Mode. The rivalries, the competitive nature of clans, the tactics and strategies, and the way everyone's driven to outdo one another. I've watched my favorite game mode fall apart before my eyes, and I know that Deadman Mode veterans all share the same sentiment. Many of these problems could have been avoided, but regardless, it was still an incredible journey. Deadman Mode wouldn't be the same without every single player, influencer, clan, and even its setbacks. At the end of the day, we all love Deadman Mode for different reasons, and I do hope that the future of the game mode is bright. There's nothing else out there like Deadman Mode, and honestly, there never will be. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you did make it all the way through until the end, let me know your favorite memory from Deadman Mode, and please remember to like this video and subscribe to the channel. I'm aiming to create more long-style RuneScape documentaries like this one. It took me nearly 2 months of hard work alongside my editor to bring this together, so your support really would mean the world to me, and it would help me know if you guys want to see more videos like this. And until next time, I'll see you in the Deadman Mode finale.
Novice.